Hey everybody, welcome. Just a quick update. As we are in adolescence, I was going to share some of the findings as it relates to adolescents and grandparents raising grandchildren. So, in the state of Ohio, we have a pretty high rate of opiate users. In fact, they say Dayton and Cincinnati are the epicenter of the United States for opiates, heroin, pain pills, etc. So, with that and the increased overdoses that have lowered the age expectancy in many Americans over the past 2 years, there's an increase of now grandparents raising grandchildren. So some of them are raising teenagers. It could be any age range, 1 to 18. And so these were some of the findings. We were doing a study. Myself, Dr. Carlia Harris, and then Gifty. We're all presenting in a few weeks at the Ohio Age Conference. And so some of the stuff we had here, our lit review, we had both grandparents raising grandchildren and then the social supports for grandparents. So as a social worker, you want to know what these supports would be. So the theory comes from family stress theory, and I know that's like 70 years old, but it is a good theory. Family stress is any disturbance that takes place in the family life process and organization. So mom being incarcerated or even dad overdosing and then having to go to treatment, hopefully not dying. Often the kids have to be placed if you're under the age of 18. You could go to foster care, but you want to keep them with the family if possible. So the research questions we were coming up with was like, what support is needed for these grandparents raising the grandchildren? They could be as young as, say, 40 or even 36 if they both were 18 when they had their first kid. So 36-year-old, even younger than me. I think the average age is like 48, 45 or 48. And then the other question was, what stage is the support needed? Is it the beginning, middle, or late stages of caregiving? So grandparents we recruited from the Kinship Navigator program. We did a focus interview and conducted. Hello, how are you?
My
How's it
sister
going?
is taking me to my appointment right after this.
Okay.
She wanted to know if she could sit in here.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, come on in. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. I was just doing a PowerPoint on what's called grandparents raising grandchildren, because now we're in adolescence. So, and this is like some of our research. So how long?
Feel about, sorry.
No, go ahead.
How do you feel about grandparents raising their grandchildren?
Well, that's exactly what this is about. And then,
no, I was asking like your opinion
on it. If the person is like totally gone and like rehab or incarcerated, or there's like 3 or 4 that we had in here. Like if they're not there, then they almost have to. You know what I mean? Like there's no option. So like you as a social worker, they try to place them with the family first, and if like the grandparents are still alive, that's an option. But if the grandparents are older and dead, then it's not. So so that's kind of what our research is on, and we were trying to figure out like what supports are needed for grandparents raising their grandchildren. Is usually money and like funds and housing. I think the grandparents can say no, but then they go into foster care. So it's supposed to be better than foster care taking care of your grandkids, because there's still the family connection. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I feel like grandparents, they can do a good job at raising the grandchildren, but I feel like sometimes grandparents isn't, because you know when you get old, you have like health issues.
Yes.
And I
Yep.
just feel like when grandparents get to that stage, I feel like that's when the children start trying to take control. You know, like
Oh
trying
yeah.
to tell grandparents what they need to do, what they're not going to do, this, that, etc. So
For
I feel
sure.
like grandparents raising their grandchildren is okay to a certain distance.
For sure. Yeah. So that's kind of what. Actually, I had some stats in here because I was going over it. We were asking what the grandparents need. So a lot of them are saying that they needed help with housing or someone to talk to, someone to be their support, to like walk with them in the journey. They also said, I need support to help my grandchild with extracurricular activities because you're right, they're old, they might be tired. I guess the youngest you could be is like either 30 or 35 if you both had kids at 15 or if you both had kids at 18. Maybe you could be 20, 29 or 28, but you would both had a kid at 14. You know what I mean? So that doesn't happen a lot, but it happens. So, um, what was the other things? This one, these are quotes from the interviews we did with the grandparents raising grandchildren. So one is, I have no spouse, no second income. It's just me and this lady, and she helped me get a crib, a car seat. I need to edit some of this because Gifty wrote it. She listened. She helped me with all the legal stuff, and I'm like, because I don't know what I was doing. Because a lot of times it's just like they don't even know their kid's using drugs, but they get arrested and now they're in jail, and somebody's got to take care of the grandkids. You know what I mean? So that happens a lot. That was one of the quotes. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So when it says legal legal assistance, does it mean like guardianship from the parent, or is like legal like that child is bad and doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, like robbing and stuff like that. So you need help getting them on the right track, or is it both?
It could be both. I've been a social worker at Lighthouse, for example, most recently, and it was grandma raising the son, and he was in trouble. I think he stole a car. I had to go see him inside of the juvenile detention center in Cincinnati. Then he did get in a bit more trouble with like a firearm, and we had to go see him. So I'm hoping he had, turned it around. But sometimes at first it is just getting the guardianship paperwork done and stuff. So it could be either or. Um, a few more quotes. One of them said, this is from a grandparent, I've been depressed since I lost my home. I was living in a van with 3 kids at the park because I was scared of my son. So this is a grandma that was afraid of, say, her 20-year-old who had 3 kids maybe, and she didn't want to go back to the house because the kid was robbing and stealing and using. And then here's the last quote. They say they'll come, but they don't. So that now they'll stop this weekend visits because he used to go there every weekend. I got to make sure we edit this because we're presenting this in front of somebody. He never missed a meeting halfway, and now they stopped it. And my grandson is a runaway, has run into depression. Yeah, that needs a little edit too. And we had a big old party for him for Halloween, birthday party, because his birthday is on the 25th, and he didn't know that his big brother was coming down. And then Mary pulled him to the backyard on the side and said, that's my big brother. My dad, I think they need more support like that. So we were saying then some of the grandparents shared that they have family and friends who give them some emotional support. So that's sometimes they feel isolated, is like you're the only ones taking care of these kids. Sometimes the government doesn't give help because they don't recognize that it's foster care because you're related to them. So that's like one of the laws we're trying to overturn in Ohio, even though the grandparents are foster parents. Even though they're related, they should get money for foster care. But they're saying, well, it's kind of your kid, so we're not going to give you foster care. But they probably should, as the kids are struggling. Then the last question we had was, what stage is the support needed? Beginning, middle, or end stage of caregiving?
In the beginning.
Yeah, I think so
you
too.
Don't know what that child has been going through or what have been going through.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that support needs to come from the beginning, yes, even though down, like later on down the line, yes, the situation can get worse. But if they're there in the beginning, the child wouldn't be going through as much. If you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think the beginning's key because you can screw up missing like resources and food stamp like access to housing and all that. So yeah, it definitely.
It's not even housing. I feel like therapy. Try to get.
Yep. Yeah, I get
do
that.
Something that will make the child or children feel okay.
Oh yeah.
Like they might like football because that takes their mind off of something. So.
Yeah. What? How do you guys know each other? Have you known each other your whole like since 30 years ago or 20 years ago? You two. Or so you did you live in California together? Or
no, I met her this.
Okay, that's cool. And then are you a social work major too?
Mm-mm.
Are you studying here or are you doing like what's your major then?
Criminal justice.
Oh yeah, okay. We have a couple in my policy class that do CJ. What classes do you have this semester?
I can't think. I'm sorry, I can't think.
That's okay. And then what year will you graduate? Are you like next year or the year after or?
24.
Oh, okay. So that would be right now it's 21. Are you guys both sophomores? Are you a
freshman?
Yeah.
Freshman, sophomore. That's right, because when you start in the fall, it's 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do 4 semesters of 15 credit hours, right? Is that how are the advisors in criminal justice? Because we all got to get you guys registered by next week.
I haven't talked to no advisor.
But you were able to get registered okay?
Yeah.
And then last semester, did you do 15 hours last semester or maybe 15 this semester?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I always try to ask people to, not as interrogation questions, but just to like make sure you're getting the proper guidance and you got somebody to look out for you because in social work, we look out for our own and others because sometimes, it's hard to figure your way out through college.
Yeah.
It's like for real expensive too, like student loans and all that stuff. So, any questions for me? And then are you guys, how far is it to get driving anywhere around here? It feels like we're in the middle of nowhere for like cornfields.
I just feel like if you don't have a car on campus, you're stuck.
Yeah.
Like you can't do it.
Right. Yeah, how would you drive or get anywhere else otherwise when you go places?
Sometimes Uber or Lyft.
And some Uber's going to be coming all the way out here.
So it's like a hit or miss.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
like
if you order an Uber, you might get a driver, you might not.
Like Lyft or something, or like Uber. Okay, Uber and Lyft. And then the green, is there the green dot or is that something
The
else?
bus?
Yeah.
I never,
I never tried to ride it out.
Because a
like,
lot
we
of
have a, not to cut you off.
that's
we
okay.
have like a WOO CSU, which is like Wolf Force Central Group Chat.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll be like, who's doing rides? They're like me.
Oh, okay.
Basically,
Right. So you guys can connect with each other. Like,
yeah.
hey, who's going to Walmart? I got to do grocery shopping. Okay. Yep. It's I do remember I lived and had to mess with the car thing, and they're not cheap to run a car nowadays either. So I hate that it still does that. I don't even know how to turn that off.
No, I agree with the autogram.
Oh, that at all stages of support.
Because
that is helpful. It's kind of, hopefully our study's okay. That's kind of a generic finding, but like I'm with you that it should start right away. Like it should be stressed in the beginning and then check-ins all the way throughout. And these are the slides I have to present. So I'm kind of a specialty area in addiction recovery and then therapeutic foster care. So the slides I'm doing is about the opioid epidemic and practice in therapeutic foster care. So the kids that are going to mom and dad or from mom and dad to the grandparents. One quote we had is that children who have lived through adverse experiences associated with parental substance abuse disorder, maybe I should spell that out, addiction, are at higher risk for significant emotional, behavioral, mental health, and physical health changes that must be addressed in order for them to thrive. So, kind of like the movie we watched on Paper Tigers, there's a couple kids that their parents had drug use issues.
Mhm.
And then sometimes the kids also pick up drugs. They're like, well, mom and dad are doing it to feel good. So why don't I, like, snort this, smoke that, and drink that? And then they get caught up in it.
Do
So
you think sometimes that's the case, or is they try it for different reasons?
maybe it's just the thing to do at their high school or college that they're at. And
Because, like, I know, like, I don't say I know somebody personally, but, like, I'll be doing my research as well. And sometimes people, turn to drugs or alcohol because that makes them feel better.
right,
So, like, their parents neglecting them, this and that. So when they drink and smoke, they don't feel that. Like, they feel numb. They just
right,
feel right. So
yeah,
sometimes I don't think it's just, oh, my mom and dad do it, let me do it.
right.
I
It
think
could
in
be,
their head, it's more like, oh, my mom and dad does that. I don't want to be like them because this is how that makes them.
mm-hmm. It definitely could be either or. So this is kind of the focus I brought in. I found a few other stats actually in my notes. It has the citation. So some dude wrote this in 2011. His name was Jay Helton. The article was called "Children with Behavioral, Non-Behavioral, and Multiple Disabilities and the Risk of Out-of-Home Placement Disruption." It was published in the Journal of Child Abuse and Neglect. And then I had these two quotes. Hopefully they're big enough. Parent substance use disorder contributed to 35% of cases where children were removed from their homes. And for every child in foster care with relatives, there are 20 children being raised by grandparents or other relatives outside of the foster care system. And this is getting to the idea of funding. So a lot of grandparents don't even report to the state that they're fostering their grandkids because they don't want to get involved with the state. But then that runs them into financial problems
It's
and they'll
not
get.
that. It's the whole process. Like, because my mom is going through the safety with my two cousins, and it's like a whole process. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Mhm.
Sometimes some people feel like they should never step into this thing because
Right.
it's like you have to go by what they tell you. Like, if you're used to traveling and going on and stuff, like, you can't do that.
Right.
You
Yeah.
gotta report to them, ask, can I or can I not go to this?
Right.
They gotta know who's watching the child. They
Uh-huh.
want to know. It's just a whole lot of hassle.
And what state is your mom in?
Nevada.
Okay. Right. Is that like Las Vegas and Salt Lake City, Nevada? Or is that?
Henderson.
Okay. Yep. Oh, Reno's out there too, isn't it? I forgot about that. I've driven out there a couple of times, but anyway, the last slide I had was 50% of the children are taken into custody in 2015 had parental substance use, and more than a quarter of them, so 28% of the children taken into custody had parents who were using opioids at the time of removal. So that's kind of just showing that there is the issue with like substance use disorder and parents that we film it online and then.
Some
Oh,
people decide to come.
okay.
So it's a hybrid. Do you guys have all in-person classes or do you have?
Not all,
Okay.
just like two.
And when they're online, do they give you the chance to watch it or like a video or do they
Yeah.
usually just, okay.
They do.
But is it a Zoom that you have to show up on time or can you access it later? Like
You have, it's a Zoom. You have to show up on time.
Or it's like through Schoology. So
Yeah.
say like a class start at 2:30. From 2:30 to 3:00. That's when you join in at 2:30. But if you like join in a little bit late, the teacher's gonna know that you joined in.
right.
But after you gotta make yourself known. Like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah. Well, and then you don't have like the information saved, and that's why I like YouTube Live because then it just saves it. And you can click on it like tonight,
Yeah.
or they could click on it tomorrow if they were sick with COVID. So I have like that, but it does kill my computer.
Yeah, I don't like the YouTube because sometimes I'm used to my teacher like, hey, Taviera, I got you.
talking to you.
Yeah, like,
Right.
hey, I got you in, or okay, Taviera, you're in.
Right. But
With
if
YouTube, it's just like, I don't know if you see me.
I know, right.
Or I comment or.
And I only do that in classes where you can come in person and hear too. So the most important is the work and learning. Now we're on adolescence. We just finished like late childhood and then adolescence and like the developmental stuff that happens during that time. So I'm gonna cruise over to that one because it was Ashford PowerPoint, and I also had the trauma that happens to rich people, which I've never done this before. So this is one of your discussions for the end of the week, and it's about what happened to Paris Hilton when she was a kid. I know nobody had. That's why I thought it would be a good
It's a
one.
lot of stuff that happened to like rich and famous people.
Yeah.
That people don't know because they pay them like hush money, like the Olsen twins,
right?
Fuller,
Yeah.
Full House.
Yeah,
I
they were
know the
abused.
dad was like raping them and drugging
Right.
them and stuff like that.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely messed up. So I wanted to get that in as we cover a lot about poverty and kids affected by poverty, but there wasn't much with the rich and famous. And she was in a boarding school where they like beat the hell out of her, and they also like made her go into an interrogation room without any clothes on and sit there cold and freezing and not eating and whatnot. So, yep. And she's only 40, so I guess that happened like 20 years ago or 23 years ago when she was 16 and 17. She just turned 40. And she's got a lot of money today too. Like she did good on her, but you'll see it in the documentary, kind of like the emotional toll on her. We are also in adolescence, so this is like the difference in hormone production. So men are up here, boys that are like 13, 14, 15, 16, their testosterone goes way up, and then boys do have a little bit of estrogen, but not as much. And then girls, estrogen goes way up, and girls have a little bit of testosterone, but not as much. And then this is some of the issues if you're early mature. And I've had folks in other class say this is true with like boys, they're usually more athletic, successful in peer relationships, and more confidence. With girls, you mature early, and some people think it's because of RGBH hormone in our milk. Like you have your period earlier, and you have stuff happen in like 5th grade. They say girls actually tend to have more academic problems and like behavior problems, which is interesting because boys, it looks like it's celebrated, and with girls, it's not. Yeah, or at least you're both like at least celebrated or just that was just an interesting research finding. That one. Uh-oh.
Sorry.
It's okay. So many electronic devices nowadays. And then brain development. So this is basically saying how your frontal lobe is not fully developed until you're like 19, 20, and 21. So that's why it's important that they have like when I'm in college to not make major decisions, but a lot of times they'll send you like all these credit card offers in the mail, like big financial decisions that you can make at 18. It's like, because your frontal lobe isn't fully developed, it's better to like hold off on making a decision. Like, sure, I'll take that $10,000 credit card and I'll buy that fast, beautiful car and I can make payments on it. But then when I get laid off, I can't pay it anymore. Common health concerns are usually nutrition because you're growing a lot through until 19, 20, and 21. That's like the peak of your growth. Your nutrition needs increase. There is a possibility of obesity. Acne is about 80% of adolescents. I had to take medicine for acne. And then dysmenorrhea is cramping during menstruation. So some girls get like bad cramps where it's hard to go out and go to class even. You know what I mean? Maybe that's why it's good we have some online classes. And then sleep, you need 9 hours and 20 minutes of sleep about, or 9 hours and 15 minutes. And then the older you get, the less sleep you'll need, which is weird. So in your 20s, you need that. In your 30s, you need like 8 hours. In your 40s, you need 7 hours. In your 50s, you need like 6. And then in your 70s and 80s, you only need like 4 hours of sleep a night because you're not grown anymore. You're just like old, and you can sleep, you can choose to sleep, but your body does not need it for like physical growth. Like after you get old enough, like I'm in my mid 40s, you're not growing anymore and you're just kind of like downhill from there. So you don't need to sleep very much.
So when does the female stop growing?
They say like the peaks are like 20 and 21. That's when like your best eyesight is, your best hearing is, your best, probably the best.
So height wise is 2021.
Yeah, I mean that would be late, but have you seen anybody that also kept growing past that age or like up until that age?
I don't know. Like I just feel like if you see somebody every day, you might not see it,
Mhm.
but when they like not vanish, but when you don't see them for a while and you come back, they just
I know, yeah. Yeah, it is kind
or
of
they voice
crazy.
is deeper. Like where did that come from?
Right. Yep. And I think girls mature before boys. Like you're taller in the 8th grade, and then boys catch up in like the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. So some of the psychological stuff that comes up though, like the theorist guy's name is Piaget, and his theory was called the formal operational stage. Like you can have abstract thought in your adolescence, and adolescence now goes into your 20s. So you could do hypothetical deductive reasoning, which is like possibilities, or do a hypothesis test. You have future thought, like what am I going to do when I graduate? What am I going to, what city do I want to live in? What job do I want? How do I want to like make a family? How do I want to my work career to show up? Um, and you can even think about thoughts, whereas when you're younger, you can't really like philosophize like that as well. And you have the expansion of thought. So by late adolescence, 60% of us use formal operations, and then the question becomes: is this really a universal stage of adolescence that you can like think outside the box and do philosophical conversations and think about what you're going to do with life? Um, One thing is in communication. You in your adolescence can use like metaphors and satire. Your writing is better. You're like learning how to write. Your writing's more meaningful. Really, in high school and college, we're being taught how to write. And I feel like I didn't learn how to write until I was in grad school, which sucks. But I had terrible writing skills until I got older.
Like, you mean, like essay writing or
Ye-
just like print?
Either one, like being able to write something that say you would publish in a journal, or write something that you'd send to a newspaper as a editorial thing. So you could do it by hand, and then you might type it up nowadays to send it into the journal. But I had dyslexia, so typing was hard. But now that we have voice to text, it's a little bit easier to like get a good paragraph going and then edit that from there.
Like with you used to have the dyslexia, like how like can you explain to me like if I was in your shoes like and I felt it? Cause like you know what I'm trying to say? Like I never had that or experienced it, so it's like I noticed someone said like to you it might be right, but to us it's not right.
Right.
So like what was your experience?
Mine was I did fine in school. I did good in classes, but I always had to show up. When I was directed to read books and I had to read things, I did not read very well. It got easier when the computers allowed you to like highlight what you're reading and then have it read to you. So I would do that. And then at the same time, typing, I was never great at, but when I got like a headset and voice to text, I was able to type my paper and write my dissertation. So it's somewhere in like the processing part in the middle that was messed up, and I was just slower.
I think my brother has it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so this one says here social workers need to understand the social and legal aspects of communicating consent. Like if you become a social worker and see teenagers, there's like consent and confidentiality. Both the parents and the teenagers are signing that consent form because they're not a legal, until you're 18, you're not your own legal guardian or whatever you would call it. And then attitudes, emotions, and regulations. So, like storm and stress myths, self esteem, they would say your lowest point is in early adolescence when you're like first maturing, everything's kind of crappy, and it's just figuring out life. You're more emotional. It says most emerge from adolescence with the same amount of self esteem they had at the beginning. Um, you can have mood swings, so greater highs and greater lows than adults. You like get more happy easier and like excited, and you also get more like depressed and like sad about things. Because again, your brain is still developing. Now in foster care, they say low self-esteem is related to multiple placements and time in foster care, which is interesting. So that's like a research study. This book usually puts out, it's not an opinion, but if a kid has low self-esteem, maybe they don't connect with their foster parents as well, and then they want to go to a different foster home or something like that. The last few, identity and acceptance. So with connectedness, adolescents respect and openness to others' views. They're connected to parents that promote individuation and identity development, and also with individuation, which is autonomy, like being autonomous or learning how to be self-supporting on your own. You're your own human being, especially at 18 nowadays. It says separateness and self-assertion. Separateness is the expression of the individual's distinct self from others. And then self-assertion refers to the adolescent's expression of their viewpoint and their clear communication. So being able to share your viewpoint and have your own autonomous thought, that all develop like these. They always say college is your formative years because you're like forming your opinions and you're getting things done that are formative for you, the formation years. Now, and then Hispanic adolescents, more like interdependence than independence because there's a bigger commitment to family with Hispanics. That's what the research has shown. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but like they kind of stay close knit and with family and with maybe their Catholic upbringing or like living. I lived in El Salvador and Nicaragua for a while, but you still sometimes even live at home or close to home even after you get married too. Whereas you'll see other different ethnicities where they'll like travel far away for work and like go as far away as Asia or India and things like that. So that's one of the themes of research that the book found that they put in there that could change next time they publish the book. Oh, I skipped one. You finally might get rid of egocentrism. So I'd say in early adolescence, adolescents have this egocentric thought, which is preoccupation with thoughts, feelings, or behavior, self-consciousness, and the theorist here is called Eric Erickson is his full name. It's almost like, and I've seen this with kids I've worked with in social work, they think they have an imaginary audience, so they'll like blow up in front of people and like, or like even on Instagram, they, like you think your audience reach is larger than it might actually be, stuff like that.
So with the egocentrism, isn't that I forgot the word.
Like narcissism.
It's like a mental. I think schizophrenia.
Oh yeah. You could be diagnosed with that and several other things to have schizophrenia. Yeah, that is true. So, and it is a stage of adolescence. So like you kind of go through it and then you're done. Like you realize that I realize I'm not as important as I thought I was at like 19 or 20, if that makes any sense.
So you could get cured with schizophrenia, or that's something that you will always have?
They have really good medication nowadays. I think you always have it, but the medicine's so good. If you got on the proper medication, your symptoms would go down, like the paranoia, especially. And
Yeah, you're right. 'Cause
so,
I have mental.
oh really?
It was crazy first seeing.
What's that?
It was crazy first seeing. She was in her room. Me
Right.
and my mom had thought it was like a man in there, and they was arguing, like a couple arguing.
Oh.
And she came up the room, and nobody came behind her. And that's when we realized.
So who had it? Was one of your friends or a relative?
No, it was my mom was running the room to the person.
Oh, okay. And they were just I've rented rooms to a lot of people.
And you notice when she'll take her medication when she's not.
Right.
When she take her medication, like even though she had like schizophrenia and stuff, she was always like nice to my little brothers. They were little at the time.
Oh.
But we'll notice when she'll take her medicine and when she wouldn't.
Okay.
When she wouldn't take her medicine, she wouldn't want to be bothered with my brother. Like she wouldn't want them. She didn't want them.
Right. Yeah. Those are some of the things that come up with schizophrenia for sure. We'll finish on these slides. So some of the hazards at this age, and you guys may know folks that had depression. So adolescent mental health disorders, the internalizing problems usually are depression and anxiety, but suicide is the third leading cause of death in adolescents. The average onset of depression is age 13 or age 15. And then externalizing problems, 25% were referred for delinquency and conduct problems. So delinquency would be like normative, peaks around age 16. It's higher in boys and ethnic minorities. Younger delinquents are riskier. Again, this is the research from the book. When deviant behavior occurs at early ages, the problem is seen as conduct disorder. So this is where they go over to the criminal justice system, like what you're working in. And then family intervention and social skills training are the most effective treatment. Like if you get the family involved and find ways to, help them find meaningful behaviors in work and school and stuff like that, they're okay. But if the family's not so involved, it's easier to get like out into the abyss and stuck in the juvenile court system and stuff like that. So, so the 3 developmental tasks for the family, the autonomy, like you want to set your kids up to be like self-supporting at the age of 18. So that's autonomy development, to be autonomous, to be on your own, to start paying for your own things. And maybe when you graduate college, be completely self-supporting, like a job and rent a place, maybe a car. It's getting older nowadays because the economy sucks. It's getting more to like 29 and 30. We have the most 30-year-olds living at home than we ever have before in the history of the United States. You also want to resolve parent and adolescent conflict. And then finally, establish parent-adolescent attachment. Like, your parents are there to go for you when you're older. When you need help, like they're not going to pay for all your crap, but they'll help you out and they'll help you learn how to then do that for your kids if you have some young or old, like I'm having kids in my mid 40s and my parents are now 76 and 74. So they still involve as much as they can. They still try to see us every week or two and hang out and whatnot.
And then the second one is like, you're resolving like, say like the parent and the child is not seeing eye to eye. You basically resolve. That's what it means. Yeah,
like you're not fighting all the time. You maybe agree to disagree, and you won't talk about those things that you disagree on, and then just not have that conflict. Because ideally, you'll be 18 and you're allowed to have your own opinions, even if it differs from your parents, and you just move on from there. And then, knowing that the parents are there and love you and are there for the rest of where you guys are going. I may actually get into this slide next time because we are I try to do half live and in person and half online. Are you guys heading out to like Xenia, the town, or in the middle of the town? Or are you going anywhere fun? Okay. Is it better to go to Dayton than Xenia, I guess?
I feel like.
Yeah, because Xenia is like a small little town. And yeah, and there's probably way more stores in Dayton. They got like Sam's Club.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go over the peer pressure stuff and the friendship and next time, the peer groups. And that way, that's all I have for today. And you guys can get on to Dayton. Dayton or Eaton.
Do I need to sign in or I'm okay?
You're good. We got the video evidence that you're here. The most important is that you're caught up on your assignments. Like I tried to open all those up at midterm, so you guys have all your discussions, your 2 or 3 major assignments, and then working on your presentation that you're going to give to the class.
Oh, and I do have a question.
Uh-huh.
So for our PowerPoint, do you have a list on what mental illness you want us to do, or it just has to be a mental illness?
It could be any major mental health diagnosis in the DSM-5.
Okay.
So anyone you want. Is there one you like better than others that you kind of study? Or
No, I just have one of the lists so I can know what to choose from.
Right. Like depression, anxiety, substance use disorder, addiction, alcoholism, poverty, food deserts even. People are doing stuff like that.
I think I'll do depression.
Okay. That works.
And then you want how many slides you want?
Usually it's say your presentation covers 10 to 15 minutes. Like if you can